Alright, so the Daytona 500 is this weekend. 2026 season just about ready to get started. And as usual, NASCAR has made some major changes to the rules package accordingly. For the most part, these changes have been well received and they've really helped build the hype for what we expect to be a really exciting season. If you missed any of these changes or haven't been keeping up with the sport lately though, don't worry, this video will recap most of these changes as well as my personal opinion, how much I like them and how much I think they will affect the product on the track. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So the first change that's really got several fans looking forward to this season is the horsepower package. NASCAR has finally listened to the majority and they will return to 750 horsepower. Of course, the change will only apply to all short tracks and road courses. All the other tracks, intermediates, the super speedways, they will still run the usual 670 horsepower. But NASCAR also announced this higher horsepower will also be used at Darlington, Nashville, New Hampshire, and Gateway, which by track length are not considered short tracks per se as they're over 1 mile. But since NASCAR mandated 750 horsepower at all tracks under 1.5 miles, they will also be included within this rules package. While this is not a massive change in the grand scheme of things, as again, little more than a decade ago NASCAR used to run 850 horsepower, this is a step in the right direction regardless, and it will improve the racing at those tracks for sure, particularly at Darlington and Bristol, which I'm already sure a lot of us fans are looking forward to those races. Another track that I believe will benefit massively from this increase in horsepower will be Dover Motor Speedway, which leads us into the next change I wanted to talk about, the schedule. NASCAR underwent a massive change to their schedule, which again, a lot of decisions that were met with generally positive reception, while a couple of those generated some question marks. One of those questionable decisions was precisely the All-Star race. No longer held at North Wilkesboro, instead being held at Dover. Now, understandably, the initial reaction was skepticism, as NASCAR's All-Star event has historically been a night race, and as we all know, Dover has no lights. Not only that, but the racing in recent years has been subpar, although again with 750 horsepower that is subject to change. By how much we are yet to know, but all we can do is hope that the Monster Mile puts up one hell of a showing for the NASCAR faithful. Other major changes to the schedule include the Truck Series visiting St. Petersburg. Instead of COTA, race number 3 on their schedule will be a doubleheader with IndyCar, which by the way will not be the only NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader, as IndyCar will be making a trip to Phoenix on the same weekend as the Cup and O'Reilly Series in March. So you can count this as a win for both NASCAR and IndyCar. Moving on, we got Watkins Glen being run in May. This is probably the earliest in the calendar year we have seen NASCAR visit the Finger Lakes Road Course. So it will be interesting to see how much the weather holds up. We also got the street course race moving away from Chicago to San Diego at the Coronado Air Force Base. I don't know about y'all, but I am so happy NASCAR actually listened to me and moved the street course race to another city. I really hope they make this a yearly thing and they race at new venues, especially those cities like San Diego that don't get to see much of NASCAR throughout the year. Luckily for Chicago though, they'll still have NASCAR coming to town because on 4th of July weekend, NASCAR will return to Chicagoland Speedway for the first time in 7 years. Chicagoland has always been a fan favorite track, and with the Gen 7 having produced some great racing on worn-out intermediate tracks like Homestead and Darlington, fans have clamored for a return, if only to see how great the racing would be. Of course, there are the concerns about dirty air and aerodynamics playing a part, but overall, this has been another well-received change to the schedule. Especially since this will be a night race, which you can feel free to disagree with me on that, but we need more night races, honestly. My only gripe is that it's not a triple header, as only the Cup and O'Reilly Series will be racing there. They should have brought the Truck Series along. But this won't be the only new change we can look forward to in July, because later that same month, NASCAR will race at North Wilkesboro for the first time in 30 years. And this won't be an all-star event either. This is gonna be a real points race, as North Wilkesboro is essentially swapping dates with Dover. Again though, just like with Chicagoland, only the Cup and the Truck Series will be running, so missed opportunity to have made it a triple header with the O'Reilly Series. But still, North Wilkesboro with the 750 horsepower and under the lights, because this will be another night race, this is an absolute win. And the last two changes to the schedule come in the postseason. The fall Charlotte race will return at the Oval. The Roval is no more. According to NASCAR, this change was made in order for the final 10 races to be all on the ovals, which, I mean, I get why they did it, although I would have personally loved to see a road course thrown into the mix. Not a Roval type mixed layout, but an actual permanent road course like Watkins Glen. But still, another celebrated change by the fanbase. The Charlotte Roval had lost its novelty aspect as the years went on, and with the Gen 7 producing much better racing at the intermediates compared to the road courses, this change was necessary. In a lot of ways, the Charlotte Roval was like Bristol Dirt, a fun experiment. It proved that the concept could work in the postseason, but ultimately we'll much rather race at an actual purpose-built surface. Some fans may be mad that the race is just 400 miles instead of the traditional 500, but again, let's just be glad the Charlotte Oval is back. Also, it may be just me, again, you can feel free to disagree with me on this, but outside of the 3 Crown Jewels and both Talladega races, no other race should be more than 400 miles long. We're in the year 2026, people, come on. And finally, saving the best for last, the finale returns to Miami. Homestead Championship weekend is back, probably the most well-received change in the entire schedule if we're being honest, as very few tracks are adequate championship venues, and Homestead is part of that select group. Now, whether NASCAR decides to keep Homestead around for a few years or rotate it with a couple other tracks in the schedule, that remains to be seen. But again, this is a massive win, regardless of which way they go. So yeah, that was a bit of a handful. Sorry if I got a little sidetracked there, but the truth is, I never got to really talk about the 2026 schedule on a separate video and give my opinions on it, so I felt it was now or never. But with that out of the way, we can move on to the next change NASCAR has made. And this is a pretty minor one. It's pretty much regarding the in-season tournament, or more specifically, the removal of the seeding races. You might recall that last year, the 3 races prior to the in-season tournament were seeding races to determine the matchups based on wins and average finish. Of course, the 32 drivers were already decided prior to those 3 races, so essentially, if you were outside the top 32 in points 3 races before the in-season tournament, you were automatically eliminated already. Well, NASCAR thought that was overly complicated, so they did away with that rule, and now the top 32 drivers at the start of the in-season tournament will directly qualify, like no need for seeding races. So the points leader at the time of the in-season tournament beginning will go up against the 32nd in points, the second guy will go against the 31st guy, and so on. Again, pretty minor change, but it's a good one regardless, as it simplifies the whole tournament matchups thing. NASCAR also made a change to the fastest lap bonus. Moving forward, any driver who enters the garage during the race will no longer be eligible for the fastest lap bonus, unless they set the fastest lap before entering the garage. Now, this is obviously in response to the whole Kyle Larson, Josh Berry at Darlington thing, where they wrecked out early, they went to the garage, they came back several laps down, but they had the pace to keep up with the leaders and actually earn the fastest lap award. Personally, I disagree with this, and this is probably the only notable rule change that I disagree with, because what's the point of the fastest lap if the driver who set the fastest lap is not properly rewarded because they went to the garage? If they failed post-race inspection, then fine, it was an illegal car, no fastest lap award for you. But if it's legal and the car clear inspection, I don't care how many times you have to go to the garage. If you can still keep pace with the leaders while several laps down and you set the fastest lap of the race during that stretch after you went to the garage, it should stand. If anything, we should blame the Gen 7 car for allowing this to happen instead of penalizing the drivers for taking advantage of the fact that the cars are all spec. So anyways, another minor change that I wanted to go over is regarding the participation guidelines. Only 2 changes were made here, the first of which was the age restriction for the O'Reilly series. Originally it was 18, but NASCAR has lowered it to 17. Now, this change won't have an immediate short-term effect, as the only driver this impacts is Brent Cruz, and even then, it will only be for the first month and a half of competition because he is turning 18 at the end of March. Long term, however, I'm really interested in seeing which drivers are going to move up to the O'Reilly series at the age of 17. Now, obviously, these drivers will only be eligible for short tracks and road courses, which is the main reason why Brent Cruz will not be starting the season in the 19. Gio Ruggiero, he was already announced that he will be taking over the 19 for the first couple of races until Brent Cruz turns 18 and he's able to run at any track. But it's the other change that's got people talking, however. That being the increase to the maximum amount of races that Cup drivers can run in the O'Reilly and Truck Series. Previously, Cup drivers with more than 3 years of full-time experience were allowed to run only 5 races in each series. This limit has now increased to 10 in the O'Reilly series and 8 in the Truck series. The other restrictions still apply. They can't run the regular season finale or any postseason events. But again, as you can probably assume, fans were split on the decision. But with win and urine not being a thing anymore, it makes sense for the restrictions on Cup drivers to be less stringent. And again, personally, I've never really cared for Cup drivers racing in those other 2 series. My enjoyment of an O'Reilly or a Truck Series race is not dictated or not dependent by how many Cup drivers there are on the field, so I don't mind this change. And yes, you heard me right. I mentioned win and urine is no more because the chase is back. Once again, NASCAR finally listening to the fans after some convincing by Mark Martin, of course. And seriously, I'm not kidding when I say Mark Martin played a massive role in the chase returning, because if it wasn't for him, I'm pretty sure NASCAR would have probably gone with some half-assed 3-3-4 playoff format, basically making the final round 4 races instead of 1, which again would have just been lazy work. We as fans just didn't want playoffs and eliminations anymore. And while a full season points format was reportedly on the table, again, NASCAR was not budging on that. That being said, however, I've also been of the opinion that if NASCAR wanted a postseason format, the 10-race chase or 7-race chase for O'Reilly and Trucks is the best balance between entertainment and keeping the title battle legitimate. So, all things considered, I'm happy with what we got, even if there's some room for improvement. First of all, this revamped chase is still 16 drivers, just like the playoffs, only this time the top 16 in points qualify, regardless of how many wins they have. So this ensures that the 16 drivers competing for the title at season's end are the 16 most deserving of that chance. Even if, in my opinion, 16 drivers is a little too much. Personally, I would have gone back to 10, maybe 12 drivers for the Cup Series. O'Reilly Series should have 10, and the Truck Series should have, in my opinion, 8. This also, however, allows for underdog wins to be celebrated again, since in years past, an underdog winning had massive implications to the championship landscape, as in Harrison Burton competing for a title over guys like Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher. Because without win and urine, I'm pretty sure Burton's win will be remembered as not just an underdog win, but also an emotional moment for his family, his father Jeff in the booth, and that also being Wood Brothers' 100th win. Now, if an underdog wins and makes the chase, it's because they finished top 16, which in that case will be 100% deserving. And let me tell you, winning might just lock you into the chase, because the points for winning a race have also been increased from 40 to 55. And this is before accounting for stage points and the fastest lap, by the way. Now, this feels a little too extreme, and 55 might be a little bit of a weird number, but when you do the math, you will realize that winning both stages and finishing second in the race would net you precisely 55 points. So, in other words, winning essentially guarantees that you will net the most points out of anyone in the race, regardless of stage points. 99 times out of 100, because of course, the Coca-Cola 600 has 4 stages and there's also the bonus point for the fastest lap. But in theory, you can get up to 76 points or 86 in the Coca-Cola 600 if you sweep both stages, get the fastest lap, and win. Which is absolutely insane to think about, and it will hopefully encourage teams to put a complete race together in order to maximize the points day. So again, a little extreme, but if NASCAR wanted to make wins matter more, they should have just done this from the very beginning instead of, making up that stupid win on your ring rule. That being said, I'm a bit disappointed that they're doing away with playoff points and instead going with a fixed amount depending on where you finished in the points. I really would have liked for playoff points to still be awarded for stages and wins in the regular season, and then those points to get added on top of the points that you're already starting the chase with. Like, for example, if you are the regular season champion, you see on this graphic, you start the chase with 2,100 points. I would also add to those 2,100 points, I would add whatever bonus points you had for winning X amount of races and Y amount of stages. So for example, you being the regular season champion, you won 4 races and 10 stages. Each win is 5 bonus points. Stage wins are 1 each. You add that up, 5 times 4 equals 20. Then stage wins 1, you won 10 of those, that's 10 points. 20 plus 10 equals 30. You get 30 points. You add those 30 to the 2,100 points you got for getting the regular season championship, and you start the chase with 2,130 points. That's how I personally would have tweaked the chase format, if for no other reason than the fact that stages are pretty much useless now. Like, people are already questioning the need for throwing stage cautions, and now the stages, they no longer give you playoff points, so it's now much harder to justify keeping them around. Like, what's the point of stage racing if there's no stage points, or not stage points, or I guess chase points, playoff points, or whatever. You can't call them playoff points anymore, but a stage win should still give you 1 point for the chase, and winning a race should give you 5 bonus points for the chase, kind of like what they used to do back in 2007 and the like. But yeah, that's the video. A little bit longer than intended since I kind of bunched 3 topics together into one. I talked about the schedule, the rule changes, and the new chase format, so I feel like I covered all my bases here. But let me know what you guys think about all these changes in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, ring the bell to stay up to date on future uploads, and I'll see you guys in the next race.